There's a wound you've been carrying your entire life, and you never even felt it open. Every single time you gave your attention to someone who hadn't earned it, you handed away a fragment of your power. Every moment you spent justifying yourself to people already committed to their narrative about you, you surrendered control of your internal state. This is the distinction between men who remain powerless and men who understand what power actually is. Your attention isn't a renewable resource you can scatter freely. It's the single most valuable asset you control. And you've been distributing it to individuals who wouldn't inconvenience themselves in the slightest to benefit you. Machiavelli understood this principle 5 centuries ago, when he observed the mechanics of power in Renaissance Italy. The ruler who pursues is the ruler who collapses. What you're about to learn is the skill set that creates the separation between those who command and those who serve. The strategic mastery of withholding your presence. Once you internalize this understanding, external forces lose their ability to manipulate you. Niccolò Machiavelli spent years in the political shadows of Florence, watching empires construct themselves and disintegrate. He studied everyone who held power: princes, religious leaders, military commanders. He examined authority the way a scientist examines a specimen. And across all his observations, one pattern emerged with absolute consistency. The individual who chases loses everything. The individual who retreats gains everything. Machiavelli rejected the concept of fairness entirely. He focused exclusively on outcomes, and the outcomes demonstrated repeatedly that those who withheld their presence became magnetic forces, while those who offered themselves freely became instantly forgettable. The prince who addressed every insult appeared insecure to his subjects. The prince who responded to every criticism appeared defensive and weak. But the prince who maintained absolute silence, who allowed his detractors to exhaust themselves, shouting into emptiness, that prince generated fear. Because silence isn't absence. Silence is a declaration. It communicates that you exist beneath the threshold of my response. It communicates that your existence doesn't warrant the expenditure of my energy. It communicates that I operate on a plane you cannot access. This is why Machiavelli advised leaders to embody both the fox and the lion. The fox possesses the intelligence to recognize which traps deserve avoidance. The lion possesses the strength to recognize which conflicts exist beneath his engagement. Most men today embody neither archetype. They function like dogs chasing every vehicle that passes, barking at every stranger, depleting themselves for zero return. You will not be that man. You will internalize that power doesn't announce itself. Power exists in quietness. Power doesn't justify its decisions. Power doesn't explain its movements. Power simply exists, and reality reorganizes itself around that existence. When you master the philosophy of silence, you stop participating in games designed by others. You construct your own framework. And within your framework, the only method to achieve victory is to refuse reaction entirely. Let me show you precisely what occurs inside someone's mind when you ignore them. This is dark psychology in its most concentrated form. When you refuse acknowledgement, their brain enters a state of social rejection that neuroscience has proven activates identical regions as physical pain. They experience it as a physical sensation in their chest, in their stomach, and they cannot escape it. The person you ignore will mentally replay every interaction, desperately searching for explanations. They will wake at 3 a.m, consumed by the question of what they did wrong. They will compose messages they'll never send. They will rehearse entire conversations that will never occur. You have transformed into a presence that occupies their thoughts continuously. This represents the power you wield simply by redirecting your gaze. The human mind cannot tolerate dismissal. We are neurologically wired for connection, for validation, for response. When you deny someone this fundamental need, you create an obsessive loop in their psychology. They will intensify their efforts to reach you. They will modify their behavior, hoping to generate any reaction. They will question their own value. And this entire process unfolds while you do absolutely nothing. This isn't cruelty for entertainment. This is understanding the mechanics of human psychology and deploying them with precision. Weak men beg for attention. Strong men weaponize its absence. When you ignore someone who has violated your boundaries, you deny them closure. Closure is a gift they haven't earned. Instead, you leave them suspended in psychological uncertainty, permanently wondering, permanently doubting, permanently diminished from who they were before they crossed you. This is the cold mathematics of power. The greatest punishment isn't revenge. The greatest punishment is irrelevance. And you deliver it simply by treating them as though they occupy no space in your reality. There's a critical difference between being absent and being strategically withdrawn. Absence suggests weakness. Withdrawal signals power. The master of this practice learns to occupy physical space while remaining emotionally unreachable. He exists in the room, but his energy resides elsewhere. He looks directly at you, but he sees through you. This isn't performance. This is transformation. Strategic withdrawal means you decide where your presence gets allocated. You don't fragment yourself across every conversation, every disagreement, every trivial drama begging for your involvement. You conserve yourself like a weapon that only gets drawn when victory is guaranteed. Most men exhaust themselves through constant availability. They answer every call immediately. They respond to every message within minutes. They engage with every provocation. And through this pattern, they become common. Being common is the enemy of power. When you're perpetually accessible, you possess no value. When you're selectively absent, you become rare. And scarcity always generates desire. Practice this with ruthless consistency. Allow calls to go unanswered. Let messages remain unread for hours or days. Let people wonder about your location and your activities. The mystery you generate holds more power than any words you could speak. Emotional unavailability isn't about coldness for its own sake. It's about protecting your internal world from those who haven't proven they deserve access. Your thoughts, your energy, your attention, these represent sacred territory. Only individuals who demonstrate their worth should receive entry. Everyone else encounters the wall. And here's the principle most will never comprehend. The less you offer, the more they desire. The more you withdraw, the harder they pursue. You're not disappearing, you're ascending. And from your elevated position, the noise below becomes quieter, smaller, and ultimately irrelevant. Not everyone deserves your words. Most people don't even deserve your silence. They deserve nothing. Learn to identify the individuals who should be completely erased from your attention. The first category is your enemies. These are the people actively working toward your failure. They want your downfall. They speak against you privately and smile at you publicly. Machiavelli taught that a prince must identify his enemies, but never grant them the satisfaction of acknowledgement. When you respond to an enemy, you elevate their status. You signal to the world that they matter enough to disturb your equilibrium. But when you ignore them completely, you strip away their power. They become shadows attempting to fight against the sun. The second category is critics. These are voices that exist solely to destroy what others build. They create nothing. They contribute nothing. They are spectators screaming from worthless positions while you play the actual game. Responding to critics is the fastest method to reduce yourself to their level. Let them talk. Let them scream. Their words evaporate into nothing while your actions carve permanent marks. The third category is energy vampires. These are the individuals who drain you with constant problems, endless drama, perpetual need for validation. They disguise themselves as friends, but they're parasites, feeding on your attention. Cut them off without explanation. You owe them nothing. Here's what you must understand with absolute clarity. Every reaction you give to unworthy people is energy stolen from your purpose. Every moment spent on their noise is a moment stolen from your advancement. The powerful man doesn't fight every battle. He selects his wars with surgical precision and allows the rest to burn out independently. Your silence isn't passive. Your silence is the loudest statement you can make. Ignoring people is intellectually simple, but practically difficult. Your emotions will betray you if you permit them. The insult will sting. The disrespect will ignite anger. Every fiber of your being will demand that you react, defend yourself, prove them wrong. This is where weak men fail. They understand the strategy, but they cannot control the emotional impulse. You must train yourself to feel nothing. This isn't about suppressing emotion. This is about transcending it. The Stoics called it apatheia, a state where external events cannot disturb your internal fortress. Machiavelli called it virtù, the cold mastery over oneself that allows a man to act with precision rather than passion. Begin with small provocations. When someone disrespects you, pause, breathe. Let the anger rise, and then let it pass through you without generating action. Don't clench your fists. Don't alter your expression. Become stone. Practice this daily until indifference becomes your default operating system. The man who cannot control his reactions is a puppet. Anyone can pull his strings. Anyone can manipulate his emotions. He is predictable, exploitable, weak. But the man who has mastered indifference is untouchable. You can insult him and he will regard you as if you're speaking a language he doesn't recognize. You can betray him and he will simply remove you from his life without drama. He doesn't need to prove anything because his power is internal. This discipline is not natural. It must be forged through repetition, through failure, through constant self-correction. There will be days when you slip. There will be moments when your emotions win. But each time you regain control, you become stronger. Each time you choose silence over reaction, you add another layer to your armor. Eventually, nothing can penetrate it. Every human interaction is a chess game. Most people don't realize they're playing. They move impulsively, emotionally, without strategy. They react to every attack and defend every position, and they lose. The master of power understands that the greatest moves are often no moves at all. When you ignore someone strategically, you force them to make the next move. You put them in a position where they must come to you, explain themselves to you, seek your approval. The dynamic shifts entirely. In relationships, the one who cares less holds the power. This is not cynicism. This is observable reality. When you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop seeking validation, you become the center of gravity. Others begin to orbit around you. In business, the man who appears unaffected by negotiation wins the negotiation. Desperation is visible. Neediness is visible. But calm indifference signals that you have options, that you don't need this deal, that you can walk away without losing sleep. This is how fortunes are built. In social hierarchies, the person who doesn't seek approval rises above those who do. While others compete for attention, you stand apart. While others gossip and engage in petty conflicts, you remain above the noise. People will notice. People will wonder. and people will respect what they cannot understand. This is social chess at its highest level. You don't win by capturing every piece. You win by controlling the board with minimal effort. You win by making others exhaust themselves while you conserve your energy. You win by being the player who cannot be read, cannot be predicted, cannot be manipulated. The game is always being played. The only question is whether you are the master or the pawn. Here is the trap that destroys most men. They care too much about what others think. They wake up wondering if people like them. They go to sleep replaying conversations, analyzing every word, searching for signs of approval or rejection. This is slavery disguised as social awareness. When you care about the opinions of others, you hand them the keys to your mind. They can elevate you with a compliment. They can destroy you with an insult. Your entire emotional state becomes dependent on external validation. You are no longer a free man. You are a prisoner begging for scraps of approval from people who don't even think about you when you leave the room. Machiavelli warned against this weakness. A prince who seeks to be loved by everyone will be loved by no one. A prince who fears being hated will make decisions based on fear rather than strategy. The need for approval is the death of power. Dark psychology reveals why this happens. From childhood, we are programmed to seek validation. Parents reward us for good behavior. Teachers praise us for correct answers. Society conditions us to measure our worth through the eyes of others. Breaking this programming is one of the hardest things you will ever do. But it is necessary. The man who does not need approval cannot be controlled. You cannot bribe him with praise. You cannot threaten him with criticism. He operates from an internal compass that does not waver based on popular opinion. This is true freedom. Start by catching yourself when you seek validation. Notice when you modify your words to please others. Notice when you hesitate because you fear judgment. Each time you catch yourself, you weaken the chain. Each time you act without seeking approval, you move closer to liberation. Caring too much is not sensitivity. It is weakness. The powerful man cares deeply about his purpose, his mission, his legacy. But he does not care at all about the opinions of those who are irrelevant to his path. Learn the difference and you will break chains you didn't even know you were wearing. Everything you have learned leads to this moment. The philosophy, the psychology, the discipline, the strategy, all of it converges into one singular transformation. You are becoming untouchable. This is not arrogance. This is architecture. You are building a version of yourself that cannot be reached by those who wish to harm you, distract you, or control you. The untouchable man walks differently. He speaks differently. He carries himself with a quiet authority that needs no announcement. People sense it before he says a word. There is something behind his eyes that tells the world he is seen through the illusions that trap ordinary men. He does not compete for attention because he knows attention will find him. He does not argue with fools because he knows silence is the superior weapon. He does not chase validation because he validates himself from within. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is forged through countless moments of restraint. Every time you chose not to respond, you added steel to your spine. Every time you walked away from drama, you elevated your position. Every time you let someone scream into the void of your indifference, you proved that you are beyond their reach. The untouchable man is not cold for the sake of being cold. He is selective. He reserves his warmth for those who have earned it. He reserves his words for moments that matter. He reserves his energy for battles that align with his purpose. Everything else receives nothing. This is the final truth of Machiavellian power. The prince who can be wounded emotionally will eventually be wounded physically. The prince who can be manipulated through his need for approval will eventually be destroyed by those who exploit that need. But the prince who needs nothing from anyone becomes a force that cannot be stopped. You are not becoming heartless, you are becoming sovereign. There is a kingdom inside you that belongs to no one but yourself. Your thoughts are your territory, your emotions are your subjects, your attention is your gold, and you decide who enters your gates. From this day forward, you do not react. You respond only when it serves you. You do not explain. You let your results speak. You do not chase. You attract by becoming someone worth chasing. This is the final transformation. This is what it means to be untouchable. You have sat in the shadows long enough. You have given your energy to people who drained you and received nothing in return. You have explained yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You have chased validation from people who could not validate themselves. That version of you dies tonight. The man who emerges from this moment is different. He carries the wisdom of Machiavelli in his mind and the coldness of strategy in his heart. He understands that attention is currency, and he will never spend it carelessly again. He knows that silence is not weakness, but the ultimate display of strength. He recognizes that the art of ignoring people is not about hatred, but about self-preservation and dominance. This is your awakening. This is the moment where you stop being a passenger in your own life and become the driver. No more reacting to every provocation like a puppet on strings. No more explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds. No more wasting precious hours on those who would not sacrifice a minute for you. From this day forward, you operate differently. You speak less and observe more. You engage only when it serves your purpose. You let the noise of the world fade into background static while you focus on what truly matters. Your goals, your growth, your legacy. The people who once controlled your emotions will notice the change. They will test you. They will provoke you. They will try everything to pull you back into their games. But you will not be moved. You will look at them with eyes that have seen the truth, and you will give them nothing. Not your anger, not your frustration, not even your acknowledgement. They will become ghosts trying to haunt a man who no longer believes in their existence. This is cold power psychology in its purest form. This is Machiavellian mastery applied to modern life. This is the ruthless art of ignoring that separates kings from commoners, victors from victims, legends from the forgotten. You now possess knowledge that most men will never understand. Use it wisely. Use it strategically. Use it to build an empire within yourself that no external force can ever crumble. If this message has ignited something within you, leave a comment below with the words, "I am untouchable." Let the world know that you have chosen power over weakness, silence over noise, sovereignty over slavery. If you found value in these words, strike the like button and show your commitment to this path. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss another lesson in power, psychology, and self-mastery. Your reign begins now. Go forth and be untouchable.